And guess who just used the big boy toilet? Oh, hey man, how was your poop? Oh yeah, no, it was great. Luscious is probably the word I would describe it, but enough about me. How's your video coming along? Yeah, no, it's coming along well, but I've kind of forgotten the name of the band I'm supposed to be reviewing. You can't remember the name of the band you're making a video on? I mean, how's that even happen? Haven't you been working on the script for like a week now? Well, I know it starts with Para, and there's something more after that, but I just can't figure out what it is. Alright, well, maybe I can help. Is it Para-less? No, that's not it. Okay, what about Para-average? No, not that either. No, that's not it? Okay, what about Paratrooper? That's a soldier. Paralegal? That's a lawyer. Pyramid. Those are the big pointy things in Egypt. Okay, hear me out here. Perry the Platypus. No, it wasn't wearing the hat, so it wasn't Perry. It's a good guess though. Shoot, okay. If it's not Para-less and it's not Para-average. Paramore. That's it. See, there we go. We got it. We're too good. We're too good. They can't stop us. Wow, this bit was so fucking dumb. Paramore have a very storied history, from shifting lineups into ever-evolving styles. There are very few bands or artists out there that can keep it as fresh as Paramore does. Coming from Franklin, Tennessee, currently composed of lead singer Hayley Williams, guitarist Taylor York, and drummer Zach Farrow, the trio has taken the world by storm over the last few years, touring with the likes of Taylor Swift, while selling out arenas in their own right. And while I am incredibly fond of the band and a lot of their work, Paramore is an artist that I've been incredibly scared to tackle in this series, just due to how diverse and expansive their music gets. However, I can only ignore greatness for so long, and some would say I have already ignored it for too long. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy, because I listen to every single Paramore album, so you don't have to. Also, if you really enjoyed the video, please consider hitting the subscribe button. I'm really pushing to hit 1,000 subs by the end of the year, and every single sub helps. It's free, and you can always change your mind if you decide you don't like my content down the road. Anyways, thanks for all the love, and enjoy the video. Paramore came to be in 2004, founded by Hayley Williams, Jason Bynum, and brothers Josh and Zach Farrow. A year later, their debut record, All We Know Is Falling, would release. It's sort of crazy to think that this album is going to be 20 years old in 2 weeks. For context, I was just about to start kindergarten, so that makes me feel a little old and wrinkly. I've been following Paramore for a few years now, but this is one of 2 albums from them that I have not listened to whatsoever before this video. With the knowledge of what songs come after this release and with the knowledge of what I already know about Paramore's music, my expectations were pretty high, to say the least. While All We Know Is Falling is a perfectly acceptable debut record, it is clear that Paramore was still finding their footing with this release. And to be fair, that's the exact purpose of a debut record, to make mistakes, get messy, just like Miss Frizzle always said. In Paramore's case, this debut record features a distinct lack of polish, both in terms of pacing and production. Of those 2 aspects, the former is the biggest issue, at least for me. For 10 songs, All We Know Is Falling definitely feels like it drags on in certain spots. Emergency is a great instance of that, a song that, while pleasant and engaging, eventually feels like it overstays its welcome over its 4-minute runtime. My criticisms of this album's production are a bit more nitpicky, but I don't think the mix is all that great. At times, certain elements of songs feel like they clash with one another, and certain instruments tend to stick out and overshadow vocals or other parts of the backing track. If there's one word I have to use to describe the production on this record, it's unfortunately distracting. Where All We Know Is Falling thrives, however, and where Paramore thrives in general, is the songwriting front. Hayley Williams and the other members of the band have such an eloquent way of illustrating exactly what's on their minds or telling a story in every single song that I think very few other songwriters have been able to accomplish or replicate. Whether it's expressing love, or anger, or depression, or anything in between, Paramore's songwriting is just on another level from anyone in the scene at the time or in the game today. Enough about the general review, however. Let's talk about All We Know's 3 singles: Pressure, Emergency, and All We Know. All We Know is a great choice as the record opener, packing a punch and introducing us to this rebellious and emotional sound of Paramore. Without a shadow of a doubt, however, Pressure stands out to me as the best of these singles, as well as probably my favorite song on the entire album. They really did pick a knockout track to be their first song ever revealed, and after listening to this song, it's no wonder that they ended up on Transformers and Twilight movie soundtracks, because to an extent, this is a cinematic song, at least in terms of how soundtracks were being implemented back in the day. Emergency, on the other hand, is not a song that I am very fond of. As I mentioned previously, it's really an issue of pacing with this song. Emergency is 4 minutes long, and I feel every single one of those minutes. The formula is great on paper, just not executed incredibly well. Franklin is another song that was a low point for me. While paced fine both in terms of being a standalone song and its placement on the album, Franklin just doesn't do anything to keep me engaged or excited. It feels like more of a lull than anything. Enough negativity, though, if you even want to call it that. Let's talk about two other amazing songs off of All We Know Is Falling, starting with Whoa. Whoa feels like a classic pop punk song with its repetitive call and response-esque chorus and changing feels and tempo. I've never seen Paramore live, but this is a song that I can see translating incredibly well to a concert setting, especially given Hayley's electric stage presence. And finally, the record ends on an incredibly high point with My Heart. One thing that I have noticed across this record is a sort of heavier guitar influence on some songs. Screams weren't on my Paramore bingo card, however. My Heart was a pleasant surprise after a somewhat underwhelming first listen to this album, closing out All We Know Is Falling in an incredibly positive fashion. To me, All We Know Is Falling is a piece of its time, but even then it doesn't really feel like it stands out against any of the other pop-punk powerhouses of the early 2000s. It's not bad, of course, by all means, it's a great attempt at a debut record, and it does have high moments here and there that scratch my pop-punk itch. However, beyond those high points, All We Know Is Falling just doesn't sound very distinct to me. It sounds just like a bunch of other things I've heard before. Again, what I think it boils down to is just that Paramore hadn't honed in on their sound yet. But little did anyone know, that moment was just around the corner. "2007 saw the release of Paramore's sophomore album, Riot. Like it or not, you've heard at least one song from this album. In terms of Paramore's pop-punk releases, Riot has to be one of, if not the most recognizable in Paramore's discography. From the chaotic album cover to its eclectic 11 songs, Riot is an iconic piece of early 2000s rock, and to me, the album that put the band on the map. Riot sees a big step up in the band's quality across the board. Production and pacing are greatly improved from All We Know Is Falling, and even songwriting sees a lot of growth. Keep in mind that these two albums are just 2 years apart from each other, and to me, they are leaps and bounds from one another as far as quality goes. Let's start with Riot's 4 singles: Misery Business, Hallelujah, Crush Crush Crush, and That's What You Get. 4 insanely powerful choices, but one obviously shines above the rest. Misery Business is not just a good Paramore song, it's not just a good pop-punk song. I fully believe that this is one of the greatest songs of all time. It's simply perfect. Sure, some of these lyrics have not aged well whatsoever, and it's great that the band have acknowledged them, but it's impossible to deny how catchy and badass of a song Misery Business is. This, to me, is yet another song that solidified Hayley Williams as one of pop-punk's greatest vocalists. That's What You Get is another powerful single on Riot, and one that I find myself going back to pretty frequently. We've all got crappy people in our lives, whether we like it or not, and to me, That's What You Get is a great way of saying screw you in the pettiest way possible. Another way of interpreting this song, however, is as an internal conflict, where the narrator is left to choose between making a rational or emotional decision. It's a vicious cycle when you know what the rational choice is, but your emotions keep swaying you in a different way. Crush 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 is yet another home run from Riot. To me, this is one of Paramore's best paced songs, and I think the instrumentation and dynamics really help in keeping the song moving forward. Riot isn't putting all of its eggs in one basket and banking it all on the singles though, because the rest of the songs on this album hold up incredibly well and have some really great consistency with one another. 2 examples of that are Let the Flames Begin and When It Rains. These 2 songs create an amazing chain of pacing on Riot. While When It Rains initially slows things down and lets us breathe for a moment after some high-octane songs, it flows beautifully into Let the Flames Begin, which gradually begins to pick up the pace and get our energy riding high once again. Picking a favorite song off of Riot is really difficult for me, but if I was forced to, gun to my head, I think it would be Miracle. I'm always baffled that Miracle has as few streams as it does, and over 30 million is still something to write home about. But in the grand scheme of things, when most of the songs on this record are crushing 50 to 60 million streams, it kind of makes me wonder what goes on. For me, Miracle is a great pick-me-up song for whenever I'm feeling down and kind of feel like I could use a miracle. So, it's simple, but it's to the point, and yeah. And finally, Paramore is 2 for 2 on closers so far because Born for This is another banger. Similar to Miracle, Born for This is yet another pick-me-up song, but whereas I associate the former with getting over sadness and emotion, I associate the latter with Don't You Dare Give Up, You Can Do This. Born for This is a song that always encourages me to keep my head up and follow my aspirations, no matter what anyone says or what I'm going through at the moment. If you don't have a song like that, or if you're looking for one of that nature, I can't recommend Born for This enough. Shit, I gotta blow my nose. Talking about Riot's low points is difficult because there simply aren't that many, and the ones that are present aren't even that low. We Are Broken, for instance, rides the weaker end of Riot for me, but it's still a song I find have incredible pacing and brutally honest lyrics. Hallelujah, while a great standalone song, feels weirdly placed on the record. To me, the song will work better as track 4. Swap Misery Business to track 3, and then Hallelujah can join in on gradually slowing the pacing down alongside When It Rains. Again, it's a great standalone song. My gripe comes from where it is placed on the track list. It's just a little awkward. And while I wish I could say Riot is a no-skip album, however, I can't, because Fences exists. Fences has always felt like an awkward song to be included on Riot, and it's a song that always pulls me out of the album and breaks my immersion. It has a pretty catchy chorus, but sitting through those verses just usually isn't worth it for me. Fences aside, Riot stands up to the test of time, not only as one of Paramore's greatest pieces of work, but also one of the greatest pop-punk albums to come out of the scene in general. Many have tried to replicate this album and its style and its success, and very few have succeeded, but that's not where Paramore ends in the pop-punk scene. 2009 saw two major updates for Paramore. Firstly, the addition of Taylor York as a full-time band member, and secondly, the release of their new album, Brand New Eyes. Brand New Eyes is an album that I never go back to that frequently, and I gotta tell you, I don't know why, because all of my re-listens for this video have been incredibly pleasant, to say the least. Every time I consciously make the choice to go back and listen to this album, I am blown away one way or another, whether that's a single song or pacing or anything, and then I go months without ever listening to it again. And I know that sounds dramatic, but that's literally how it goes. I don't know how else to explain it. Either way, Brand New Eyes is an incredibly solid record. Its production and track selection is on par with that of Riot, but I'd say the greatest improvement is, once again, the band's songwriting. There's several lines on Brand New Eyes that have left my jaw hanging open, and that's not to say that the songwriting on All We Know Is Falling or Riot are bad. It's just Brand New Eyes is yet another massive improvement. This buff to Paramore's songwriting stat is evidenced by its 5 singles: Ignorance, Brick by Boring Brick, The Only Exception, Careful, and Playing God. Careful is our opening track, our introduction to the sound of Brand New Eyes, and while I think it's a tiny step down from Pessimist, it still packs a punch all the same. If I have any criticism, I think the song just barely overstays its welcome, but it's not nearly egregious enough to be problematic. To me, however, the strongest of these singles has to be Ignorance. Now look, you can't really outperform Misery Business as far as lead singles go, but God, Ignorance tries its hardest. There's something incredibly satisfying about an angry and vindictive, fast-paced pop-punk song, and Ignorance is exactly that. From the high-octane opening guitar line, Haley's reserved and gritty vocals in each verse, the song has got all the necessary elements for making a song about the one person you despise. As far as other singles go, I'd obviously be doing a disservice if I didn't mention Brick by Boring Brick, an adrenaline-fueled and brutally honest track. Sometimes it can be easier to disassociate from the world and create a world inside your head to escape to. Paramore is quick to bring us back down to earth, however. As much as it sucks, we have to face the world head-on, no matter what it throws at us. Brick by Boring Brick is a huge confidence generator for me as someone who often needs that wake-up call to get my head out of the clouds. With some melodic ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba-das and aggressive guitars, Brick by Boring Brick solidifies itself as a Paramore setlist staple in no time. Of any singles from Brand New Eyes, the one that caught me off guard the most was Playing God. Earlier I mentioned how some of the songwriting on this record has left my mouth agape, and Playing God is the song that inspired that line for me. In particular, I was blown away by the second verse of the song, where it just feels like Hayley Williams is calling me out specifically. The line sends chills through me every time I hear it, just for how pointed it feels. And of course, the grand finale, All I Wanted. While Born for This is definitely my favorite track of the two, All I Wanted is probably what I consider the better track. How could it not be? All I Wanted is masterfully paced, with natural buildups and volume from start to finish, and of course, Hayley Williams belts her heart out on this chorus. Need I say more? Now, I know that I said I haven't gone back and re-listened to Brand New Eyes that frequently, but 3 songs are the exception to that rule. One is Ignorance, one is All I Wanted, and one is Where the Lines Overlap. Lots of people write love songs, but there's something so charming about how Paramore describes a relationship on Where the Lines Overlap. No One Is As Lucky As Us is such a relatable way to describe a relationship, because when you found that one person, it really does feel like you're the luckiest in the world over anybody else. In terms of songs I'm not as fond of, shoot, I don't know. Brand New Eyes is similar to Riot in that there aren't really low moments on it. If I had to choose any low points on it, they would probably be past the first third or like second half of the record. Looking Up, Feeling Sorry, and Misguided Ghosts don't really stand out a whole lot to me, but they're not bad songs. Paramore, I think, is very similar to 21 Pilots in the sense that they've got a very high bar for quality and a very straight line of consistency throughout their 6 albums, which makes it hard to find criticisms of any of these songs. So if I just put one of your favorite songs in the not so fun category, please don't read into it too much, please don't take it personally. They're just songs that I think are not as good on a record full of great songs. With that, we say goodnight to the Brand New Eyes era. This was a far more pleasant listening experience than I was expecting. Not that I was expecting it to be bad, but it's just the idea of I always forget how good this album is. Hold your freaking horses there for a second, guys, because for the first time ever, I've got merch. I finally revealed some of the merch I've been working on the charity stream a few weeks back, and it is now available for sale for you guys. We've got a few options. I'm currently wearing the Flex on the Haters crew neck. This is also available as a t-shirt. This is my personal favorite. I know it's getting warm out right now, but don't worry, it's going to be just a little drippy out this summer. We've also got hats. We've got another t-shirt. That's it. We just got those 3 items right now. But there's more stuff on the way. I've got a bunch of samples here in my house. They're all high quality stuff. I'm actually really impressed with how it all turned out. So if you want some for yourself, you want another way to support the channel, the link to the merch store is going to be in the description. And I hope you pick up some cool clothes. The end of the Brand New Eyes life cycle saw some pretty dramatic shifts in the band's lineup. The Farrow brothers left in a fairly explosive fashion, leaving the band as a trio comprised of Hayley Williams, Taylor York, and Jeremy Davis. With heads held high, the band set out to create their 4th record, Paramore, which was released in April of 2013. Self-titled saw a gradual shift in Paramore's sound to be a little more pop-driven. To a very brave few, this would be something that would turn them off of the artist entirely, but I think most fans stuck around and dug the new sound. As for me, this is record number 2 that I haven't listened to in its entirety. I've heard scattered songs here and there, of course, but never the whole thing front to back. So what did I find with my first listens for this video? It's fine. I know, I was a little disappointed. Now, this is not a critique of the style change because I think Paramore pulled it off gracefully. Lots of artists try to make a genre shift at some point in their career, but very few are able to make it happen while making it seem authentic and still retaining their audience. Paramore is the exception to this rule, however, breaking free the pop-punk shackles and finding mainstream success with a brand new style. I think my biggest issue with Self-Titled is the pacing of it. This album clocks in at just over an hour, and don't even get me started on the deluxe version, which practically doubles that runtime. Most of these songs are at least good, but with 17 songs and 3 bonus tracks, there are bound to be a handful of misses. Unfortunately, one of these misses for me is Fast in My Car, the opening track of the record. Not every single opening song needs to be a gut punch to get things moving, but Fast in My Car just doesn't have a spot that hooks me on the album. Maybe that's a responsibility for the singles, but I think it's important for the opening track to have that power too. Especially considering that people are going to be listening to this album 12 years later. While we're on the topic, let's talk about the 4 singles of Self-Titled: Now, Still Into You, Daydreaming, and Ain't It Fun. While I love the messaging that Now offers, the repetition in the chorus is a bit annoying for my tastes. If I'm looking for a song to claim my triumph and hype myself up, chances are I will not be choosing this song. Beyond Now, the singles are relatively solid. While Daydreaming starts a bit abruptly for my taste, it's got a great hopeful tone for it, almost like a parallel or foil to Brick by Boring Brick. Daydreaming almost reminds me of a song off of Blink-182's Self-Titled, or an Angels and Airwaves song, with how atmospheric the instrumentation sounds at times. Ain't It Fun, on the other hand, is a song that you are probably sick of, as am I. However, I can't deny that it is an incredibly solid song off of Self-Titled. It is a pretty blatant example of Paramore's style shift, and I can see why that would be a turnoff for longtime fans or hardcore pop punkers, but screw them. At the end of the day, I'm just happy that this song was an excuse for people to play Paramore on the radio. So that's kind of cool. And for the crown jewel of self-titled, Still Into You. Truth be told, I didn't realize just how popular of a song this was until quite recently, but at the very least, it's one I am happy to see so much popularity and love behind. Let me reiterate again that I am a sucker for a cheeky love song, and that should be all you need to hear to know why this song is such a soft spot for me. Let's move away from singles for a moment, however, because I'd like to talk about the interlude tracks on this album, something I wouldn't normally do. More often than not, interludes, especially in this genre, feel forced and disruptive to me. In the case of Paramore, who come bearing 20 songs on the record, Moving On, Holiday, and I'm Not Angry, help to break up the stagnant pacing just a little bit. It's not perfect, but it's a conscious and cognizant decision on Paramore's part, so I can't be mad. Part 2 is a track that caught me off guard in a positive, albeit different way than other tracks have. Early on, I noticed similarities between this track and Let the Flames Begin from Riot. A little bit of digging led me to discover that part 2 is, well, part 2 of Let the Flames Begin. Either way, part 2 is a great continuation and iteration of what Let the Flames Begin started, as well as being a good song in its own right. Another track I've really been digging is Proof. As far as pacing and tempo management goes, Proof knocks it out of the park. It's also got one of my favorite choruses that Self-Titled has to offer, and I can picture it being a great song to dance to live. As for the tracks I'm not fond of, there are a few. We've already talked about Fast in My Car and Now, so let's move on to see Hate to See Your Heart Break and One of Those Crazy Girls. Bluntly put, these are two songs that do not hold my interest whatsoever. Heartbreak is 5 minutes long, and you feel every single one of those 5 minutes. One of Those Crazy Girls isn't as bad as it has a satisfying release of pressure on the chorus, but the verses don't inspire me to stick it out long enough to make it to that point. Future is another dull point for me, and maybe I'm just an impatient bitch. Man, I'm not really one for songs that last longer than 5 minutes. In my opinion, there aren't really a lot of bands that have pulled that off successfully. Green Day's one. Rush is another. I guess Knucklepuck did it okay with Untitled. What stinks is that while there's a great release of pressure and the grandiosity on Future, it doesn't hit until nearly 4 minutes into the track. Pacing wise, I think Paramore really missed the mark on this song. Alright, well that wasn't nearly as many bad songs as I thought there were going to be. All things considered, I do think I'm a bit harsh on Self-Titled. As far as full records go, however, this isn't a release I see myself going back to over most other Paramore albums. It's just too daunting of a listen. With that in mind though, I'd like to remind you to not take anything I say so seriously, because at the end of the day, my opinion is just that, an opinion. An album or song or any piece of media can be special to you for whatever reasons, and all that matters is what you find in it, not what anyone else thinks. So please don't take any of these critiques as me invalidating your feelings whatsoever. Self-Titled also saw some lineup changes. Jeremy Davis left the band, this time for good after suing Haley and Taylor, and then he went on to make his own solo music under the moniker Germ, which, if you haven't listened to Germ before, I heavily encourage you to give it a shot. It's so funny, man. But the truth of the matter is that this left a hole in Paramore's lineup, and who better to fill that hole than their very own Zach Farrow returning to the band. The trio entered the studio in 2016 to record what would be one of their most successful records to date. After Laughter, Paramore's 5th studio album, released in May of 2017. It also marked a pretty definitive change in the band's sound, fully throwing away any pop-punkish vibes in favor of the pop-rock sound that they had started to develop on Self-Titled. A change that would bring After Laughter to critical acclaim. Now, I know I just made a whole rant about not letting other people inform your decisions and finding meaning in music in your own right, but it's hard to deny the critics in this case, because from start to finish, After Laughter is one amazing collection of songs. The band's choice to hone in on the pop-driven sound for After Laughter and make it their own really paid off. Like I said, not many bands can do a switch like this. Many have tried, many have failed, not Paramore. After Laughter is completely different from anything that came before it, and while most artists would see a pretty drastic fall off doing a change like this, Paramore only thrived off of it, soaring to new heights of popularity. After Laughter's 5 singles are a great example of Paramore's successful style change, Hard at Work. Hard Times, Told You So, Fake Happy, Rose-Colored Boy, and Caught in the Middle. 5 excellent choices, but one shines above the rest. It's no secret that Hard Times is one popular Paramore song, and for good reason. It's It's one of those electric songs that you can't help but sing along to, along the likes of Sugar We're Going Down, The Middle, and Jamie All Over. It helps that the song is an upbeat and positive anthem, and I think I'd go to a Paramore concert solely to hear this song. I don't see this leaving the band setlist anytime soon, and I hope that they keep it that way. Unironically, if you don't like this song, I don't trust you. Hard Times is not just a good standalone song, however, it also works flawlessly as a lead single, introducing us to the new sound of After Laughter, as well as the first track on the record, setting tone and expectations for the next 40 minutes. It also flows seamlessly into track 2 of After Laughter, Rose Colored Boy, another high point of the album and a single. Similarly to Hard Times, this is another track that I can't help but sing and dance to whenever it comes on. For as peppy and as bright as the instrumentals are on the song, I think Rose Colored Boy is intriguing to me for how elusive the lyrics are. It's very easy to take the song at a surface level analysis and see it as another look on the bright side track, but it's more about seeing the world through rose-colored glasses, using a naive sense of optimism when maybe it isn't rational to do so. Continuing into track 3, Paramore keeps the energy flowing with Told You So, yet another single. We've all dealt with condescension in the past, and sometimes it feels like these condescending people are watching you like hawks, waiting for you to make any minor slip up and call you out on it. It's a frustrating sensation to say the least, but Told You So brings me comfort, in the sense that it helps to know that I'm not the only one that's had to put up with people like that. Moving on from the singles, there are 2 more amazing songs that I want to talk about, starting with Grudges. Now, I'll admit, I can be a bit stubborn when it comes to disagreements and working things out with the people that I feel like have wronged me. It's something I've been working on, but it's difficult. It's hard to let things go sometimes. But Paramore says that's exactly what we gotta do. Grudges is all about Hayley and Zach's relationship as friends after the Pharaoh's departure in 2010. As they say in the song, we can't keep holding on to grudges. It's not healthy. It doesn't help us to keep holding on to those negative thoughts. At the very least, I'm glad that Hayley and Zach didn't keep holding on to theirs, because it means we got this amazing song, as well as everything else on After Laughter. If there's any song that just hits me in the guts and kicks me when I'm down though, God, it's gotta be 26. 26 is brutal, not masking any of its raw emotionality behind a peppy instrumental. Instead, the song favors a simple acoustic track as Hayley sings about keeping hope and continuing to rise after you get knocked down. For me, the simpler, less overwhelming instrumental of the song really helps to sell the emotion of it all. And once again, After Laughter is a similar case to Brand New Eyes when it comes to its low points. As opposed to outright terrible songs, After Laughter's low points are just songs that I haven't ended up revisiting that much. Several songs on the second half of this album make up that population, including Pool, Idol Worship, and Caught in the Middle. Again, that's not to say that they're bad, I just don't have that many constructive things to say about them, either on the positive or negative sides. I'm planning on listening to After Laughter a lot more after this video finishes up, and I'm sure that my opinions on these songs will develop further. As the After Laughter era came to an end in 2018, the band went on a hiatus of sorts. After some time, however, rumors began to surface that they were back in the studio, making a new record. In 2022, those rumors finally came to fruition. Paramore's 6th and most recent album, This Is Why, was released in February of 2023. While this is an album I own on vinyl, it's also one of the Paramore albums I've listened to the least, in the same ballpark as Brand New Eyes. Right from the get-go, it should be very obvious why this album was nominated for and won a Grammy Award. Everything from the songwriting to the production is incredibly strong, making for one of Paramore's strongest albums to date. Even if this isn't my fondest piece of Paramore's discography, and it's not one that I see myself going back to that much in the future, I can at least acknowledge that it has deserved every single accolade and award that it's earned. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the pacing of This Is Why's 10 tracks. While having an equal number of songs to All We Know Is Falling, the arrangement of these tracks flows much more smoothly, and none of these newer songs feel like they overstay their welcome. It's just kind of cool to see that growth from 20 years ago to now. Crystal clear quality is apparent just from the singles off of This Is Why, of which there are 4. This Is Why, The News, C'est Comme Ça, and Running Out of Time. This Is Why makes for an amazing reintroduction to Paramore, their first new song in 5 years. Life in the limelight is not easy, as most of us are made to assume, and This Is Why tackles those issues head on, sharing Paramore's struggles of being constantly in the public eye. While The News isn't a track that I return to all that frequently, and was even one that I wasn't very fond of when it first came out, this song slaps. Now more than ever, The News feels like a relevant song. Conflict seems to be present no matter what direction you look in, and it's unavoidable due to how present the news and social media are in our lives. Try as you might, you will never escape the news, a feeling that's just draining to even think about. The News is unfortunately a track that I think will be relevant for many, many years to come. Running Out of Time is yet another single that I've been sleeping on from This Is Why. It Funnily enough, I've actually heard the song a bunch in the form of snippets on Instagram ads, but it's never one that I actually went out of my way for to listen to the whole thing. While not necessarily a deep or complex song lyrically, Haley's vocals are incredible on this track and deserve a ton of praise. The high-pitched shrieks leading into each chorus help really keep the pacing going, as well as selling the frustrated mindset of the song. On top of that, Running Out of Time feels like some of Paramore's catchiest guitar riffs to date. Certain parts of this song almost feel suspenseful before hitting a vibrant and aggressive chorus. If any other song on This Is Why resonated with me, however, it was probably Thick Skull, the closing track of the record. After the disappointment of Future on Self-Titled and the sort of okay sound of Tell Me How on After Laughter, Thick Skull wraps things up very nicely in a change of pacing that I'm incredibly thankful for. Maybe I'm just out of my head, but this song almost feels like a grungy, Nirvana-esque way to end off This Is Why, something that I wouldn't have ever expected from a Paramore album. Thick Skull is great because it catches me off guard in the best way possible. In terms of songs I'm not so crazy about, there's only one, that being C'est Comme Ça. To give the song credit, this is the most nitpicky complaint in the world, so please don't read into it too much. It really just boils down to the chorus annoys me a little bit. That's really it. And that's it for This Is Why. I know that this section was pretty brief, but again, this album is on the shorter side, at least as far as Paramore releases go. Short doesn't equate to bad, especially not in this case. This Is Why is a compact collection of 10 amazingly written, amazingly produced songs, and I'm fully confident saying that anyone can find at least one song to enjoy on This Is Why. Ranking these 6 albums has been incredibly difficult. As I mentioned before, Paramore is a band with crazy consistency and crazy high bars of quality, and I truly think this is a band that every single album or song can be someone's favorite. I don't think a lot of bands can say that. I think most of them can't. But I'm not here to be your friend. I'm not here to make sure things don't get hurt. So I'm here to rank these based on my own opinions. Let's start. Number 6, All We Know Is Falling. It almost feels wrong to rank this album at dead last, but 6 doesn't mean bad. Again, we just talked about consistency. All We Know Is Falling is still an incredibly nostalgic trip back to 2005, and even with its faults, it still stands as a solid try at a debut record. Number 5, Self-Titled. This one should not be surprising whatsoever. I was pretty scathing in my review of this album. While I wouldn't outright call any songs on this record bad, there are a forgettable few that turn Self-Titled into a pacing nightmare. That being said, Self-Titled continues the trend of improving quality across each record, and the high points of it are incredibly solid. Number 4, This Is Why. As a huge pop punk fan, maybe I'm a bit biased putting This Is Why so low on my ranking, but that's where it is for now. While not my fondest release from Paramore, I won't deny that this record contains some of their best songwriting to date, and I can't imagine how they go up from here on the writing front, but I'm sure that they will. Number 3, Brand New Eyes. Choosing whether to put this at 3 or 2 was so incredibly difficult. My re-listens of Brand New Eyes have obviously been incredibly positive, and I really feel inspired to rekindle my relationship with this album. And I think after doing that, it's got a shot at taking number 2. Number 2, After Laughter. Man, After Laughter is just such an easy record to put on. I hit play on this bad boy, and before I know it, it's over, and I'm just putting it back on repeat right from track 1. I know I said this for Hard Times, but I'm gonna say it for After Laughter as a whole. If you don't like this album, I do not trust you. And number 1, Riot. Riot is just such a consistent and cohesive piece of work, and while the band has really polished their style since 2007, I can't help but have a special spot in my heart for these 11 songs. Riot is just a classic. This has quite possibly been the hardest episode of I Listen to Blank So You Don't Have To that I've ever produced. Of the many artists I've covered in this channel, Paramore has some of the most intricate writing and production, as well as just one of the most consistent discographies out there. I think all 6 of these albums are so close to each other. So finding the words to share my thoughts on their music was incredibly challenging, but I'm glad I did it. There are countless Paramore songs that I've been sleeping on for years, and I'm excited to continue exploring this band in the future. Anyways, thank you so much for supporting this video, as well as just the channel in general. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subs by the end of the year, so if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing so you don't miss my review of every Maroon 5 album next month. We've got some exciting projects in the works, and I can't wait to show you all what I've been working on. There's several tracks on Brand New Eyes that have left my jaw hanging open. And it's not that the songwriting on Riot or Falling in Reverse, holy fuck.